more awareness for the Chicago flights and highlight incentives for our business passengers. It is also crucial that YKF continue to participate in local community events to generate the interest from small families. To drive desire, YKF needs to implement a loyalty program and contest promotion. The purpose of our loyalty program is to retain our current customers, which are the business passengers. So frequent flyers can redeem discounts and gift cards based on the amount spent on their total flight. Contests for our leisure travelers can include partnering with the Charco Group restaurants and regional malls to promote a contest for a round-trip flight to Chicago. And finally, action. We need educated representatives to encourage signups for our programs, and they should be reaching out to local businesses to highlight YKF's services for their employees' business trips. And finally, to coincide with our business promotions, YKF should establish partnerships with post-secondary institutions to highlight the added convenience to international students due to the close proximity of our schools and the airport.
Thank you, Dennis. Continuing on with the implementation, we're going to look at how YKF can accommodate a nighttime structure. First things first, we got to get permission from these guys to fly. Transport Canada is the lead things of all things travel in our country. We expect this negotiation process to take between 1 and 1.5 years, and we can expect to have this approval sometime in 2014. Also in the immediate term, YKF should begin to enter relationships and negotiations with airlines looking to land in Toronto during this nighttime slot. The airlines behind me are examples of airlines which have explicitly expressed interest in landing in Toronto during these hours. They also all have special reasons why Waterloo might actually be a prime destination for their flights as opposed to Toronto. For example, Cathay Pacific services Hong Kong, and through Hong Kong it services the rest of China. Now Waterloo is a very well-respected city in China, mostly due to its technology industry and its strong post-secondary education systems. This means that a number of business travelers and international students will already be interested in flying directly to Waterloo as opposed to flying to Pearson and having to come back to the city of Waterloo. Looking more to the short term, we recommend that YKF do a slight organizational restructure in order to separate daytime and nighttime operations. YKF can do this by hiring a daytime and a nighttime manager, as well as have a liaison role between the two of them to ensure no communication is lost. We also plan to hire a couple of employees, or a number of employees, in 2015 to prepare for the nighttime operations budget, which we want to start in 2016. Additionally, we recommend that YKF go through with their plans to expand their airport for capacity reasons. Right now, the airport can handle a capacity of about 200 passengers every 30 minutes. However, some of these flights, namely the flight to Hong Kong, has a plane passenger capacity of approximately 400 people. In order for YKF to keep its competitive advantage of quick, convenient customer service, the airport expansion plan needs to go through. Additionally, we also recommend that YKF look at extending their runway in order for these large planes to land and take off. We recommend you do this by purchasing an acre of land east of the runway and extending the runway 3,500 meters, or 3,500 feet, sorry, in order to meet the minimum requirements for these planes. Finally, since all these airlines have initially looked at flying to Toronto in the first place, we want to recommend an express bus service between YKF and Toronto's Union Station. We recommend that YKF partner with GO Transit or Greyhound in order to make sure that passengers can get to this location in a quick, convenient, hassle-free manner. Looking more into the long term, we want to begin night schedule operations by 2016, specifically focusing on getting Cathay Pacific and reopening the WestJet flight to Vancouver. We believe that there's enough demand to justify more frequent flights of these natures in order to increase the amount of revenue that YKF can bring in. Secondly, we recommend to alternate your marketing implementation plan in order to make sure that the most effective strategy is being implemented. Finally, YKF should consider their ultimate expansion if there is enough demand to justify this to keep their competitive edge. Looking at some expected financial results, when we begin operating in 2016 this nighttime budget, revenues soar, leaving an operating deficit of only $600,000. We break even in operation profit in 2017 with an EBIT of $200,000, which continues to increase as the years go by. Considering a $5.2 million investment in the terminal upgrades, etc., in 2015 and a 6-year time period to 2019, YKF can expect to have a net present value of $4.9 million, further justifying that this is an opportunity that YKF should not ignore.
In conclusion, the nighttime flight opportunity is substantial enough to alleviate YKF's operating deficit and foster long-term sustainability. In conjunction with a differentiating marketing strategy, consumers will not only be aware but interested in using the airport for not only its domestic but international needs as well. It is YKF's vision to provide the community with a convenient form of transportation. Successful implementation of our recommendation will continue to fulfill this vision by providing its passengers with excellent customer service and additional destination options. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening, and I'd like to now open up the floor to any questions.
Great presentation once again. It strikes me that the viability of this is pretty much contingent on the ability to extend the runway. I mean, you partly answered my question. My initial question was, is the airport able to accommodate the size of the planes currently flying? Given that airport runway extension usually meets a lot of community opposition, how viable do you think this is in terms of?
Great question. Can we go to the noise management question? So right here, what we have is a map of the airport given from Google Maps. Now, the reason we recommend to extend the runway eastward is because there's only really no residential area around this the area we're planning to purchase. Now, there is kind of one farm there that may provide contention. Google Maps doesn't show if they actually own the land that we're trying to get to. However, it is completely possible that this person actually owns the land. However, we feel that we have allocated a sufficient budget in terms of purchasing land and actually extending the runway.
You're taking an option on this land already.
Sorry?
You're taking an option on this land?
We're taking a little bit of that. We're not in the real estate business, so we don't know full feasibility. However, since this isn't a residential area we're trying to expand into, it's more of a farmland type of area, and since it's already very close to the airport, we believe it's very feasible to purchase this land in the first place. Now, extending the runway may be a little bit more of a challenge, and it was hard to us to fully estimate how much extending the runway would cost. What we did is instead looked at the capital expenditure spreadsheet that was provided to us and noticed that there was an apron resurfacing option right there. So we looked at the total square area of pavement and assumed that it'd be roughly the same material that'd be made, and provided an estimate of how much it would take to extend the runway given the square feet that we want to extend by.
Well, I can let you know a little secret. We already own that land. So. Great presentation. I had another question. So I'm glad you did kind of talk about the runway extension because I didn't necessarily read it in your presentation, but maybe I missed it. I can tell you that the runway extension you're talking about would be in the vicinity of about $30 million.
Ah.
So I'm not sure what you did put into your sort of break-even analysis there, but I doubt that you did capture a number that significant.
Right.
But the way you went through it, I really like that idea. My question is what are your thoughts on, you talked a lot about how we do sort of offer the nice sort of small, friendly atmosphere that people are looking for. Do you think as we grow, though, we would become a victim of our success, that as we grow, we can't really necessarily offer all those things? We can't offer the 25 feet from the parking garage or from the parking lot and the free baggage carts. We have 25 baggage carts now. As you grow, you can't necessarily do that. So do you think that how should we sort of approach that?
So, since Regional Waterloo International Airport, we already mentioned that the competitive advantages include the efficiency, convenience, and customer orientation. So even though that this grows, I feel like you guys will stay true to what you value. And so I think that even when we do through the expansion, and also based on the amount of flights that we are currently imposing in our current plan right now, it's not going to affect the customer service in that sense.
Okay, and then my last question is sort of about the Transport Canada approval. Can you talk to me a bit more about what you believe needs to be done for that, and where you sort of came up with that idea?
Perfect. I got this one back to the noise management flight. So, from our understanding of what transportation, why they impose caps, especially on Pearson, It's all about how the activities at the airport at night will affect the surrounding communities. Mainly that comes to noise. How much noise will the airport be generating and who will be affected by that? So currently right now, the rates and fees article that was given to us mentioned that YKF can land planes at night and they charge a $5,000 fee for landing at night. However, this is only restricted to a stage 2 level noise, a noise certification. Now, we looked at the ICAO, which is an international body that kind of defines what noise levels is. And basically it said that Chapter 2 or Stage 2 noise aircraft are being zoned out. They were made before 1978, and everything, all subsonic jets made after that are mostly considered Chapter 3. Now, considering that the rates and fees didn't say this was restricted, we believe that YKF may actually have authority from Transport Canada to land some planes at night under certain situations. What we're doing is looking to get approval to deliberately put planes at night and fly planes at night. Now that comes down to the noise classification again. Pearson's closest residential area to its runway is approximately 1.5 kilometers away. However, in the map of the Waterloo Airport here, you can't see here, but the closest residential area is around here, which is 2 kilometers away from the main runway area, which means that they are less susceptible to noise, just because of the nature being farther away. Also, as you can see in the chart there, planes make the most noise after they take off and as they approach landing down. If we have planes coming in this way on the airport as opposed to coming in down here and leaving down there, the main central noise area will be approximately this area here where we plan to extend the runway. This means that this is over 5 kilometers away from the nearest major residential area. It's only a couple farmlands that we have to worry about right now. So given that, we're only looking in the scope of our plan to add at most 2 flights a night versus Pearson's upward of 54 at that time. Transport Canada, we actually have a viable case for having these nighttime flights because it would be much less of a bothersome to the community than Pearson is to its surrounding residential community. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
And I just had a question. You had WestJet's logo up at the front. You referenced them a couple of times. I know you talked about the Vancouver flight, but what other destinations were they looking at or talking to Pearson about with the night landings?
Just repeat your question one more time. Just want to make sure I cover everything.
Well, you were talking about WestJet's logo appeared in the beginning, and you referenced the Vancouver flight. But I'm just wondering what other destinations WestJet was looking at bringing into Pearson overnight, because we can handle that aircraft now. So just curious to know what.
Right. So WestJet primarily, the reason why we focus more on Vancouver as opposed to other destinations is simply because we've seen historically, Region of Waterloo International Airport has already had a demand for flights to Vancouver. So we didn't focus a little too much on the other alternatives just because we wanted plans that were going to work, especially in the short term, especially to break even. So that's why we focus mainly in Vancouver, just to make sure that we meet that demand.
To add on to that too, your question was like what other flights WestJet is looking to get at?
Yeah, because they were listed as wanting to travel into Pearson overnight, and I'm just
Yeah.
wondering where they originated from, because
Right.
if they match with ours, then there's, yeah.
Of course. So one of the guidelines for the case that we were not actually allowed to contact the airlines directly. I'm sure everyone in this room is just like, come on. So all we have
No,
really,
very true, yeah.
yeah. So since we couldn't contact
Nobody
WestJet,
did, right?
yeah. So all we have to really gauge what WestJet wants is looking at the flights that are currently being scheduled out of Pearson. And so there's a little bit of guesswork involved into that too. As Ralph had mentioned, there's a lot of domestic and transporter flights. So flights going to Canada, the rest of Canada, and the United States happening at night. So we believe that all the destinations there is a viable option because since they're there, that means there's demand for them. So some of these flights included another flight to Calgary, another flight to Edmonton, Halifax, etc., which is kind of more of the general areas that we are considering domestically. That being said, we don't know exactly what areas WestJet's looking to land simply because we were not able to get into contact with them.
Well, beautifully done, and graphically it was great.
Questions? Good.
We'll get off that runway. Just hug check. Just hug check. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much.